Valorant asked, what if we took Counter-Strike and turned it into a hero shooter? This one worked. XDefiant asked, what if we took COD and turned it into a hero shooter? This one didn't work. Concord asked, what if we took Overwatch and turned it into a garbage fire? Hello? Oh, they already did that by themselves? Wait, so what are we doing then? We're charging how much for it? Fragpunk is the latest contender in a genre that just won't die. Hero shooters are everywhere. They're in your recommendations, they're in your Steam wishlists, they're in your nightmares, and they just keep coming. But here's the thing, most of them don't survive. We've seen it over and over. Big budget, live service hero shooters launching with promises of innovation only to get shut down within a year or a week. So what makes Fragpunk different? And more importantly, what makes it not Concord? My name is Artie, and I've been a professional esports coach and caster for the last few years. And if you're interested in esports content or essays like this about the industry, you do us both a favor by subscribing and helping me out on my YouTube journey. A lot of people said that they wished that I talked about Fragpunk's gameplay in my last video and what makes this game so interesting for a lot of people. So let's dive into it. In the intro, I compared Valorant to Counter-Strike and XDefiant to COD, because if you break these games down to their core gameplay loops, those are the clearest parallels. With Fragpunk, the developers had a vision to bridge the gap between those two types of games. In-depth movement mechanics, speed, a fast TTK, and the classic one-life search and destroy gameplay loop. At its core, that's Fragpunk. But it goes a lot deeper than that. Fragpunk leans into what I can only describe as unapologetic RNG. Every round, players are presented with a pick and ban system for shard cards, temporary power-ups that can drastically change the flow of a match. The winning team earns more shard points and can theoretically access stronger cards. But at the same time, both teams can collect shard points scattered across the map each round. And if a team wants to play conservatively, they can save up those shard points for later rounds, setting up a potential power shift in the match. It's dynamic, it's unpredictable, and more importantly, it keeps every game fresh. Each half, you can use whatever weapon you want. They're all viable. There's no in-game economy for the weapons, only that you get one of each per half. And if you die and lose the weapon in one round, then you don't have it in the next. You can also change characters each round like Siege, so if something isn't working or a specific character and weapon combo is going to be a better fit based on the cards that came up for the round, you can change it up, keeping the player engaged even during the gap between rounds. The gunplay is tight, the movement has just the right amount of depth to it, with certain characters and cards being able to take advantage of it more than others, and the list goes on and on. Fragpunk is doing something different here, adding something new. Now, contrast that with Concord. Instead of embracing chaos, it took the approach that was safe for investors and tried to avoid RNG at all costs in favor of a competitive structure. But in doing so, it ended up with mechanics that just felt like punishments. If you won a round, you couldn't use the same character again. And in order to reward you for changing your characters, they also had crew bonuses, where each character class had a specific bonus that would apply to you for the rest of the half after you played that character, and those bonuses would stack for the entire half. You could play a character that has, I don't know, faster reload 3 times, so that the 4th round you can reload insanely quickly. I don't know, I didn't play this game. You didn't either, and the point is that Concord didn't do anything fun, new, or crazy. Fragpunk also has a big advantage over Concord in that it's free to play and not $40. Yeah, Overwatch was $40 when it released, but that was almost a decade ago. Sony really saw that and thought, yeah, that would totally work in today's social and economic climate. So if we're being real, that's like 50% of the reason that Fragpunk is going to survive. But you already know that this video is a lot longer, so let's talk about the more interesting 50%. Concord likely spent a good amount of that $400 million on just the cinematics alone, whereas Fragpunk is focusing entirely on the gameplay first. If the game succeeds, then yeah, they probably will flush out what a Lancer is and how shard cards fit into the universe. All of this is already written. The world, the lore, the characters, the story, we can see that with the reveal trailer, but unlike Concord, they only made that reveal trailer. It really seems like Concord saw just how much hype Overwatch cinematics got back in the day and how gamers begged and pleaded for more. But again, people cared about Overwatch first because it had good gameplay and it was fun. That's why they cared about the cinematics. Cinematics came second, not the other way around. There's no doubt in my mind that the largest reason for the $40 price tag that aided in the downfall of Concord was put there because the cinematics took up so much of that budget. Speaking of which, do you know how many cinematics they made for Concord? I don't have an answer for that, but I mean, look at what they've released. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, this looks like garbage, because regardless of how lifeless the design is or how you feel about the characters, this is a gorgeous cinematic render. You can tell that it's done in Unreal Engine 5, but it's a lot more work to make something like this this than just importing the character models from the game and scripting some poses. Let's also not forget about the fact that they also made several full animations as well. Did I mention the 14.5-minute long cinematic from Blur Studios yet? No? Okay, let's talk about this. Full disclosure, nobody knows exactly how the IP rights or monetization or partnership scheme worked for Amazon's Secret Level series. Each episode was produced by a different studio, but Concord's was produced by Blur Studios, one of the most prestigious and expensive animation studios that exists. It's unclear if the episode's production was paid for by Sony or by Amazon, but regardless, there absolutely was some cost that Sony paid for this game to be included in the series, let alone the creation of many of the assets used in the episode. Regardless of however that all played out, you can start to see where the issue is, where Concord really overspent on the cinematics and marketing and underspent on actual dev time. We've already spoken about how much fun Fragpunk is, and the fact that the developers are trying to make the game not only fun, but unique in a way that makes it stand out in the current market. But as much as you can make these mechanics sound fun, a great concept isn't enough. You have to test it, you have to refine it, and make sure that it not only works, but that it's an enjoyable experience for players. And that's where Fragpunk pulled ahead long before Concord ever had a chance. Let's talk about one of the biggest differences between these two games, the beta timeline, and more importantly, how each developer responded to feedback. Fragpunk's beta happened almost 6 months before launch. That is a long time. That's an amount of time where if people have issues with the game, the developers can actually make changes to it. Compare that to Concord, which had a beta, if we can even call it that, just 1 month before release. 1 month. What are you going to change in 1 month? If there's a game-breaking bug, sure. And to be fully fair to the developers, Concord's launch was, ironically, one of the most bug-free launches of the entire decade. Everything actually worked. The servers were fine, probably because nobody was in them, but like the menus didn't hitch or lag, the game was actually very well optimized on PC, and everything worked. It just wasn't a fun game. But if you're gonna launch a beta just 1 month before release, and that game has major gameplay issues or just isn't fun, there's nothing you can do. The developers don't have time to overhaul entire gameplay mechanics in just 1 month. They don't have time to adjust gunplay in a meaningful way. They certainly don't have time to fix core systems like movement, let alone introduce entirely new content in response to player concerns. At that point, it's not a beta. That's just a glorified demo. Coming back to Fragpunk, 6 months? 6 months is an actual development window. If something about the game isn't working, they have time to change it. They have time to implement actual fixes. Time to rework core mechanics before launch. Like I said in my last video, Fragpunk's developers have a major respect for the feedback that they were given. They actually use the beta for what a beta is supposed to be, getting feedback and making changes. Now let's talk about the biggest visual and tonal difference between Fragpunk and Concord, how these games actually look and feel. Fragpunk is leaning into vibrant, over-the-top stylization. It's colorful, it's punchy, it's exaggerated. You look at a single screenshot of Fragpunk and you immediately get a sense of what it's about. High energy, fast-paced action with a unique visual identity. The art direction isn't trying to be photorealistic, but it looks super pretty anyway. It's just trying to be expressive. And the characters have distinct silhouettes, the environments pop, and even the UI design is bursting with personality. And then there's Concord, a game that, despite being set in a sci-fi universe with a diverse cast of mercenaries, somehow looks incredibly generic. The color palette? Muted. The character designs? Bland. The environments? Forgettable. It's like someone took the creative spark out of the concept art and replaced it with a corporate-approved, focus-tested, safe look. It's not that the graphics are bad. I mean, on a technical level, the game looks fine. It is an Unreal Engine 5 game, and it has that Unreal Engine 5 fidelity to it. But there's a difference between being high fidelity and then having an actual identity. And that, of course, carries over into the tone as well. Fragpunk is not taking itself too seriously. It's having fun with its world, with its characters, the mechanics. The moment-to-moment gameplay is designed to be chaotic and playful, and that energy carries into the way the game presents itself. I mean, you have shard cards that are changing the entire world around them. They haven't explained how that works, but who cares? It's sick. Meanwhile, Concord is doing that thing where it tries so hard to be serious and cinematic that it forgets to be interesting. I mean, all we know about one of those characters is that he likes hot sauce. That's his whole personality that we've gleaned so far. I like lore as much as the next person. I am a huge lore nerd. Ask me about literally any of the games that I have at least 50 hours in, and I will tell you about the lore. But when it comes down to it, the game has to be fun first. And That's the key difference. Fragpunk is designed to be a game first and a narrative experience second. Concord was trying so hard to sell people on its world that it forgot to make the world worth caring about. Fragpunk is one of my most anticipated games of this year. It's doing something different, something fun, and like I talked about in my last video, its developers are actually listening to players. Meanwhile, Concord felt more like a case study in what not to do. If hero shooters are going to stick around, I'd at least prefer the ones that take some risks and asks the players what to do, not the investors. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to leave a comment and press buttons down below. Thank you so much for watching, and don't worry, you'll see me around.